This is an overview of the tendon tension monitoring system on the Neptune platform that is owned by ENVEN. We're going to talk about some of the progress on this. My name is John Hedengren. I'll just walk through some of the details. These are installed on the internal of the hull in the pontoon on webframe R on the very tip tank, and then webframe K in the middle section. And what we're going to do is talk about some of the improvements on how we instrumented with these fiber optic sensors, and some of the improvements over the initial install and some of the things that we learned. Now, fiber optic sensors, we use these Fiber Bragg gratings that have etches in them, and if you go in closely, you can see that within the core of the fiber optic there are these evenly spaced etches, and as the light passes through, a certain amount is reflected back. And as that fiber Bragg grating contracts or expands, the wavelength changes as reflected back to the interrogator. So we use that to be able to monitor the strain changes on the web frames of the internal hull. And also we have to compensate for temperature as well, because these are also very sensitive to temperature. We put these up to 30, in this case, 30 sensors in series in this multiplex temperature or strain sensing. And one of the challenges that we ran into is, we tried to resolve, is to do better surface preparation. You could also see with this the humidity that's driven off by these heat guns. So each of the sensor stations, after it was returned to bare metal, we would dry them with these heat guns so there's no moisture there. One of the things we saw on the right is that the initial install had some bubbling, and that was likely due to some of the moisture that was on the surface during the installation. And that was affecting some of the sensors, especially when the bubble happened right at the sensor location. So we used passivation with phosphoric acid, and then also drive off the humidity from the sensor locations before installing. We also instrumented with additional types of sensors, plate and regular standard sensors. So to get in, here's our confined space entry. Come down this ladder with the back stretcher. I'm going to go into the first compartment here. Here's P2B. And you can see some of these reinforcements here. You can see some of the buckling that happened. The design did not consider the forces that were here. It wasn't that sufficient, so they added these. You can see some of the bending right there. Alright, and we're going to come down here and go into P2A. Alright, so P2A is where webframe K will be, and we'll come through this hatch. Here are the penetrations. Right here, the Bragg penetration with the two cables for the TTMS-I and TTMS-II. And this first one. Kind of a noise coming from that tube right there. Here is our webframe K with the installed sensors on them. Make this thing stop. I just made it worse. Okay. There we go. Alright, there's webframe K. I'll come back and get a video of that. Now we're going to be going into the tip tank here. And this hatch are the penetration, the red cables, the two that go in. We did not replace these this time. Okay, and we're going to come into the tip tank. Alright, so here's webframe R, and we're just doing some final cleanup. And how's it going, guys? Alright. This is Pontoon 1, web frame are in the tip tank. Here's sensor number 1. I'm just going to get a zoom in on it. Okay, and we're going to go along. One of the things that we see here is bubbling of the polysulfide, but also we'll have some sensor locations where we'll see the bubbling as well on the JB weld. This is a sensor that's covered with polysulfide. It's sensor number 2. Okay, we wiped all of these down just to wipe off the red silt that had formed on them. Here's sensor number 3, and we can see evidence of bubbling. Just go at it from this angle to see a little bit better. The bubbling underneath the polysulfide in particular. Okay, we'll come up on the loop and then over to sensor station number 4. Now this one is not covered with JB weld, but we can still see some evidence of a couple bubbles there, not many. This is, I believe, a good sensor. There you can see the loops, and then over to sensor number 5. And we'll get just an angle here just to see some of the bubbles. Okay, you can definitely see them with the light. Now anytime a bubble would form underneath where the sensor location is, that's going to cause it to drift. Okay, I'm going to follow the loop around. This is sensor number 6, and this one in particular, you can see the fiber right there in a bubble that has formed right where the fiber is going. So if the sensor is right there, you definitely see that drift. Okay, and here is 7. We're going to come at this angle just to show the profile. And number 8, quite a bit of bubbling here on sensor station 8. You can see very little corrosion where the bare metal is. So the anodes are doing a very good job of protecting it. We're going to have the loop back, and then sensor 9. And there's the profile of 9. Okay, we're going on over here to 10. But before we do that, we'll just visit the, these are the temperature sensors. Now this one is completely gone. The polysulfide cocoon that was over it has peeled off. I think this might be due to some of the wave action causing this cable to maybe dislodge one side of it and then just peeled off. You can see the bare fibers there. Okay, with a little bit of corrosion happening. Okay, so that was sensor 9. We're going to go over to sensor 10. Okay, and sensor number 10 is at sensor 9. Sensor 10, this is the temperature sensors that peeled off. Here is number 10, 11. Then we're going to come up and around. Here's 12. Now we have a break somewhere in here, in between 12 and 13. So there's 13. It's one of the lower ones. It's vertical. And then we come over to 14, and that's our last one. There's the red connection that forms the loopback. Here is the red cable. And you can see the red cable comes up, along, and back down to the interrogator. You can see the water level that comes up halfway up this. Down below is where those were installed originally, and halfway up is where the corrosion starts. That's where the water level is, so you're not protected by the anodes. And up here you can see a little bit more corrosion, but overall it's fairly clean. This is one exception, it's just a little bit scaled here. So this will clean off nicely. And this has no evidence of bubbling. Right here, there were some gauges of interest that were placed in here as well. And so one potential is we could install in this area. I'll just go over here to this other side, just take a look at this other area. It's fairly dry down here, just a little bit of water. And you can see if we installed right here, we probably have to get some scaffolding over this area to be able to work and be able to install this. This is pontoon 1, web frame R. We have the red cable that links in the loop. We have 2 that split out, one that continues over as a transition from the left-hand side sensors, and then one of the loops that one of the cables comes down to sensor station number 1. Sensor station number 1 also has the 1540 nanometer temperature sensor, the ceramic one. And you can see these are 2 standard FBG fibers at 90-degree angles for temperature compensation. Here's sensor station number 2, and these are plate sensors that we pressed on with no epoxy underneath, and you can see the JB weld covering those in metal parts. Okay, I'm going to come and just follow the trace. We do have a ladder in the way here, and it comes over to sensor station number 3. This is one of the standard FBGs. You see them at 90 degrees. It's a horizontal primary with a vertical secondary. And then we can see the cables coming up. Here's number 4. This is a plate. This is 1508 and 1512 nanometers. And then we come up to sensor station number 5. And there you can see it. This one is one of the standard FBGs. And then I'm just going to follow this over. Okay, and it comes down and then up. And it comes right through here. There's a little bit of tubing that protects this just for any wave action that might be happening. Put that fiber through some tubing just to take any of the mechanical action that's coming. And then it comes down here to sensor station number 6. You see these are plates at a 45-degree angle, 1524 and 1528 nanometers. And we're going to go over here. Here's the connection to number 7, and these are standard FBGs, and you can see clean down to metal with the metal prep, heat applied before the sensors were installed with the passivation and all of the other steps that were in the procedure. Here is number 8, and you can see as well this is bonded with Belzona to this out of the way. Okay, you can see the 90 degrees forward and back. Here you can see number 9, and these are plate sensors. This is the first one we installed, the only one where the epoxy was underneath the sensor. And you can see that they're attached like the other ones. You can also see the red cable coming up. And I'm going to go right through here. You can see the fiber coming through here and then back on this other side. There's just a little bit of a gap because this is the only closer view on each of those. Okay, and then we're coming to sensor station number 10, okay, which is going to be further over. This one is a temperature sensor right here. This is a 1536 with Belzona epoxy, and you can see some of the JB weld above it. Okay, so that's going to be the also the return line there. Here is sensor station number 10, and this one is JB Weld Marine, so different than some of the other epoxies that we use. We use different ones on this left-hand side, and you can see this one is this is sensor station number 10, and you can see JB Weld Marine. These are one of the standard FPGs. And we go down to 11. This is with Belzona epoxy, and that cures in about 9 minutes. So much faster curing. These are some of the plates. You can see the connection. And going down to 12, this is also Belzona. This one's one of the standard FPGs. Here's the ladder. I'll just get the top view here with the connections. And then we come over here to the very last one. This is 13. So we had, or 14 down here. We just did 13. And then we had a test strip right here, just with some of the different epoxies. Belzona, JB Weld Marine, JB Weld, and Belzona with the different fiber pull tests. Here you can also see the 1536 Belzona temperature sensor. And then this red cable then links back into the original one that just uses one fiber of the red cable to link back into the two fiber as it goes back. This is the red cable that's coming down for this second loop. You can see this is on the other side of the tip tank. We have a couple straps that are securing it in place, and a zip tie all the way back. So we cut it off of this line that came in from the original side over there, and then moved it down here to this other side. And you can see the straps are securing it in place. These are with Belzona, very rigid, and then it came onto the other side. This is web frame K in pontoon 1, and the junction box is removed from this one. We just have the 3 red cables coming up here, the tie-in here, even from the web frame R, that goes up then through the black cable and up to the top. Okay, I'm going to go through this one. I'll start with sensor number 15. This is the one that's fractured right at the sensor. Now you can see just a lot of corrosion happening all around here. The floor is wet. Okay, and it looks like the water wicks up here. It just causes a lot of corrosion happening. There's no anodes to protect it. You can see 15 is kind of a narrow install right there, and something happened right at the sensor location. And that causes the ones that are downstream of it to also have a weaker signal. Here's the temperature sensor, 1584. And then we come up here, loop back, and sensor number 16 is right here. Sensor 17 on the side. I'm just getting a profile here, no bubbling like we saw on web frame R. And then there's 1576 for the temperature. There's 18. All right, and then we go over to 19. Just a light polysulfide covering, but otherwise just the JB Weld. And overall, very little corrosion up here as compared to right down below that's much more raised and popped. Okay, and we're going to go over to, from 19 over to 20. This one is covered with polysulfide. And then we have the loop backs, the loops, and there's 21. And continuing over for sensor number 22. And then we have sensor 23. At an angle, there's T1580, temperature sensor 1580, and 24. And you can see the corrosion that has happened around the sensor. Overall, everything looks really solid. There's really no bubbling, no, this, just a little bit of corrosion you can see it comes off with just by rubbing it. Okay, there's 25. You can see this one is a little bit concave in. The sensor was just up from the seam there. And you can see the loop backs, and there's T1588, and then temperature 26. And everything comes back into the red cable and then back up. Here is web frame K on the reverse side. And you can see there's a couple supporting trusses here in the way, but there's a hole there that we can go through that's going to be we can string the fibers through if needed. So there are definitely openings. We do have to watch out for that cable that comes back that does the plunger for the level sensing. This is pontoon 1, web frame K, and we have plate and we have the standard sensors. I'm going to start off with sensor number 15. You you can see the direction of the primary of 1484, and then the secondary, which is 1488, the B, and then the C and the D, those are the plates. And that's going to be the same in all of them, that the standard are going to be on the upper left, and then the plates are going to be on the bottom right. Okay, we're going to go over here to 16. I'm going to follow the loop around, and here is 16. And then come up, and there is 17. Now we added an extra sensor on this side. It's sensor number 28, and you can see the orientations as well as the wavelengths there. Now these are on the sidewall. We're going to continue to loop around to 18. There you can see the orientations and the wavelengths. And then over here is our temperature sensor. This is a 1572 nanometer temperature. Okay, we also have a temperature here of 1552 nanometer that's right by sensor station 15. And there is 19 with the marked wavelengths. Okay, I'm going to go over to 20. And on the way, you'll see a 1560 nanometer right next to 20. And there is sensor station number 20. And then there's another temperature, the 1568. Here is station 21. And then right below it is temperature 1548. So you can see where that is relative to the other two. And then we have a 1556 nanometer temperature. And we come over here through this opening over to sensor station 22. And then we're going to continue up. There's a 1564 temperature relative to 22 and up to 23. So zoom in on the sensors. Okay, here is 24. All right, and then over to the side, again on the sidewall, we have the temperature sensors. This is station 27. You can see the orientation and the wavelengths. All right, here is sensor station 25, and here's the connection down. And then we're going to go over, and this is 26. And you also see temperature 1544 right there, right above 6. And then you can see the sensors. Now we did have a broken fiber right here, and the loop back is right here with the cable. That's just empty sheathing, and the yellow cable that would take it back. Okay, but that one is broken, so we're not going to be using that one, but it does get still all of the temperatures. You just don't have the loop back. Okay, let me go back here and just show one more time back to the starting place, and I'll get the junction box as well. And the loop back with the black cable up to the surface. So the yellow cable comes back down through here, and then it's going to come up and around here up into the junction box. And then we're going to see the sensors that are spliced in. This is the junction box with the sensors located here. We have the 6 splices for the black cable that goes back up, both the primary and the loop backs for each one. Now the only one, the loop back that's not working right now is the one that was a plate sensors. That would be fiber 4 out of the 6, and so that loop back is not there. If we follow the black cable, we're going to come up here, around, and then it's going to go up and down the walkway. There's a loop, and then it returns back to the top side. Here's the tie back using the red cable that was originally tied into the temperature loop on this side of the web frame. This is the original install, and you can see the bubbling that occurred on some of the sensors. Okay, but we cut that red cable from the temperature loop, and then that came in to the other side. It's fixed here with Belzona and straps, and then on this side looped up with some zip ties up top. This is Pontoon 2 web frame R. I'll walk through the sensors. They start here with this red cable coming in. This red is the tie-back line that comes back, and it ties into sensor number 5 as actually sensor number 4 as the first one. I think it was sensor number 5. But I'm going to start down here with our temperature sensor. We moved sensor number 1 over to the wall, and I'll visit that one in just a second. But we have the lower temperature 1540 nanometers. Okay, and then we come over here to station number 2, and then we go to station number 3, and we'll continue up to station number 4, and then over to station number 1. Now in this, we did use the plate sensors for sensor stations 2, 4, 6, 9, 11, and 13. Okay, here is station 5. And then we come over here to station 6. We moved all of these. This one was supposed to be right here, so we had to move it over to not be in the way of that support beam. You see the red cable over that one, and you can see some of the routing of the cables. And we come over here to 7. This is one of our horizontals. And then over to 8. The A is always in the primary direction, B is in the off direction. We'll come over to 9, symmetric with 6. And here you can see the termination of that red cable. We're only using one of these lines. It has Belzona for the epoxy to just affix that in place, and polysulfide for the rest of it. Here's temperature 1536. That is the upper temperature. Upper temperature is T1536, and then we're going to continue on to station number 10, and then 11. We have in between these two, we've moved station 14 over to this side, and then we come back to 11, and then down to 12, and 13, and then back and tied into the red cable that goes back to our existing line that links to the top side. Now, one of the things that we did on this install, as well as the others, is try to make it very thin as we could. This is a plate, and this is one of the standard sensors right here. So I'll just get it from a couple different angles. See some of the thickness. So it's just kind of a minimal thickness just to cover the fiber for the sensor. This is WebFrame K and Pontoon 2. And we're going to start with the very first station, which is 15 down here. And you can see right above it, there is also a temperature sensor, the T1552. And we have the standard and the plate sensors on here. And we're going to go over to 16. And the standard and plate, the A, B, C, and D directions here. And we move this one a little bit up from the weld seam, as you can see here, instead of trying to grind down the weld seam. Now it comes up to 17, and then over to 27. This is an extra gauge installed on the sidewall. And we come over here to 18. And the primary direction is here in 45 degrees. And then we come over to 19, and there's another temperature, T1572, right above it. Okay, as you can see, these are all very thin. Right here for the standard, the plate sensors are just a little bit thicker. Okay, I'm going to come over here to 20, and there's also 1560 for the temperature. So here's 20, here's 1548 for the temperature, and 1568. All right, and then we have here, this is 20, and then 21. You see many of the cables are overlapping. The standards were done first, followed by the plate sensors. Here's T1564, and this is going to be 22. All right, and then we go over here to 23 and 28 on the sidewall, and then here's 24 again. Okay, as we pass by that, and then 25. And finally over to 26, which is our last one. And there's T1544, which is a lower temperature. And then this ties back in to a yellow cable that then comes back to the junction box. We go ahead and show the junction box here. Okay, with the yellow cables coming into the back side of the junction box, the black cable then returns back up here to the top side and through that penetration back to the top of the hoops. So this is web frame K in Pontoon 2. This is web frame R in Pontoon 3. This is the first one we did last time, second one we're doing this time. Here you can see the red cable that comes from the other compartment down here. On the other side of the web frame, it comes right through here and then starts the loop. This other red cable completes the loop back. We're going to start here, just going around the loop, and there's our first temperature sensor right there, the lower temperature sensor. And here is sensor station number 2, and those are plate sensors. We're going to go over here to 3, and these are standard fibers. We're going to come up here to 4. These are going to be plate sensors. And then around, it's going to go to station number 1. And those are going to be standard. And then station 5, these are standard as well. And then back through the ladder and up here to number 6. And these are plate sensors on number 6. And then we continue on another horizontal. These are 7. These are standard sensors, bare fiber. And then number 8. You can see the red cables attached with Belzona epoxy. And here we have just on all of these are JB Weld. Okay, there's number 9. These are plate sensors. And then we're going to come over here through this opening right here and back out, and then to the upper temperature sensor. These are ceramic, uncoupled from the platform and from the web frame. And then over here to station number 10. And okay, and then after station number 10, we go over to station 14, and then back here to 11, and then from 11 down to 12, and 12 to 13. And that finishes it off for this loop. Let me just go and trace it back. Here's the red cable that comes back and goes back over there to the starting place. This is web frame K in Pontoon 3. And here are all of the sensors. I'm going to walk through each one, just talk about each sensor station a bit. We have sensor station, this is number 15. Right here you can see we did the standard fibers, but we did not do any of the C and D, the plate sensors. You can see the standard fibers on this side, and then you have a ceramic temperature gauge right there on that same pad. That's the lower right temperature gauge. Okay, we're gonna come in from the junction box here, and then that's where we start the loop. And then we're gonna come over here to sensor station 16. This is 1492 and 1496 nanometers. And then we come up here and it comes over to 27. This is one of the sidewall sensors. And then back over here to 18. As you can see, just the standard fiber sensors there. And then we're gonna come over here to number 19. Number 19 is where that junction is. Okay, but you can see all the sensors coming in and then over onto this other side. You can also see another one of the temperature sensors that's right there on the right. Okay, we're going to come over here to number 20 and the A and the B. Okay, and here's another temperature sensor right in between 20 and 21, and then one that's low as well. Prior, we'd put that below here, but just for routing purposes, put that just a few inches up here on the lower spot. Okay, and here is sensor station 21. And then we come over to sensor station 22. And again, that one has a temperature sensor right here. Okay, and then we come over to, okay, here is a splice protector. It kind of looks like a temperature sensor. All right, here is 23. Okay, it's at a 45-degree angle up. There is, the fiber comes along here to 28 on the sidewall. And then we go to 24. Okay, and then here's 25 down here. Okay, 90 degree. We avoided this weld seam, as you can see, just put the sensor station up from that. And then you can see sensor station 26 with the associated temperature gauge right above it. Okay, that loops back up here, ties into the yellow cable, and then comes back. There are two loops here. We did not do the plate sensor, so we don't have the 3. And then it comes up here into the junction box. And I'll just share how that comes. The black cable loops in, and the black cable comes like the other black cable from the first install. Okay, so here is the prior install on this side, and the new installation on the other side of the web frame.